Good morning. Welcome to this plenary session and of the conference, of the Learning Conference. And it's a real pleasure for me and an honor to present a friend and also a great scholar on bilingual education and also on artificial intelligence, Dr. Magdalena Custodio Espinar. And I'm going to read her bio. Magdalena Custodio Espinar received her PhD in education in 2018 from Complutense University of Madrid and received her Extraordinary Doctorate Award in 2019. She was technical advisory teacher for the Regional Ministry of Education in Madrid, Spain. Also, she has provided in-service and pre-service teacher training in numerous courses. She has extensively published her research on bilingual education and CLIL and in indexes, scientific journals, and also in reputed publishing houses. She has been invited as a visiting scholar in prestigious universities such as Granada University, University of Castile, La Mancha in Spain, and the Yokohama City, it's well said, yeah. So Yokohama City University and Sophia University in Japan, where she is honorary member in Japan CLIL Pedagogy Association. Currently, she is teaching and researching in the Faculty of Human and Social Sciences at Comillas Pontifical University in the Department of Education, Research, Method and Evaluation. Her research interests include teacher training, lesson planning, CLIL, ELT, EMI, co-teaching, STEAM, and recently AI. So today she will be addressing a very timely and thought-provoking topic entitled Artificial Intelligence, Simulation, Extension or Realization. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Professor Custodio.
Thank you very much, Sylvia, and thank you very much also to the conference chair, who is not here at the moment, Professor José Luis Ortega, who is a very good colleague of mine. Thank you also very much to Common Ground chairs, Mary Calensis and Bill Cope. I don't know where he is at the moment. And thank you very much to Granada University and to all of you, right, for being here to share with me this plenary session in this 32nd International Conference on Learning that has the title Human Learning, Machine Learning, Challenges and Opportunities for the AI in Education. And therefore, I'm going to try to explore those challenges, those opportunities, in an attempt to provide a framework, a techno-pedagogical framework for effectively integrate AI in education. And, well, I will do it in particular, in general in education, but in particular in language learning, because this is my background and, as you heard from Sylvia, my research field. I will first do a reflection and share with you where we come from, where we are at the moment in education, and where we need to go if we want to integrate artificial intelligence in our classrooms. Then I will focus on particular context that is foreign language teaching and learning, but anything I'm going to reflect and comment and say can be applied to any kind of education in general. And I will also bring into discussion some important ethical dilemmas and issues in equity and biases. And finally, because this is my research field, I will analyze and reflect with you on the role of the teachers in this challenging educational setting. I was born in 1971 here in Granada. I come from here. I live in Madrid for a long time, but I come from here. And since then, technology has evolved a lot. From bulky analog machines to very powerful, sophisticated devices that are shaping every day, every life, in everywhere, actually. So, for this reason, I decided to do it personally. I have brought here a timeline of the milestones in technology I have been living through my personal life, right? And I decided to start with the telephone because at my home, my mom has a telephone in the living room and one telephone in my parents' room. That was what we had. That was the technology in my house, right? Then for me, the fax was a machine to be in an office, but not in my house, right? And I have to recognize that the only mobile phone I saw when they appeared was on movies, on television, right? They were very popular, very amazing, but I never had the opportunity to see one, you know, personally. And then in the 90s, I married my husband, who is Japanese. And then my life in terms of technology changed radically. We bought a PC with lots of, for me it was something amazing to have access to the internet with this modem. Do you remember the sound of the modem connecting? Some people are nodding because you might be of my age. So that was memorable, right? That was something that for me was amazing. The first time I had access to the internet, I had access to Wikipedia. So these are memorable milestones for me in terms of technology. And then very suddenly, things started being faster and faster. So we had access with the broadband era to internet, with fiber, smartphones with lots of applications, some of them already including artificial intelligence, but we didn't think about that at that moment. And nowadays we are, from this year, 2022, living with generative AI. And this diagram is an evidence of the astonishing leaps we are living since 2022. I mean, all this life I have been experienced with technology involved many years. But in just 3 years, we have moved from very simple text generation and translation to very sophisticated tools involving and performing tasks that we had never thought before. Of course, I don't dare to explain this complex diagram, right? I'm going to start from a very simple definition of artificial intelligence I am going to read for you. Artificial intelligence is a branch of computer science focused on creating systems capable of performing tasks that typically require human intelligence, such as learning, reasoning, problem solving, and understanding language. So from this definition, I'm going to take two words, two ideas. One is tasks. AI can perform tasks, many tasks. For instance, machine learning. Machine learning involves AI that can learn from data and perform things that these applications are not constantly programmed for, but they learn from data and they can autonomously prepare to do something, right? Something new. Also, natural language processing, machines that can understand language. And I say understand language in inverted commas because, as we will see later, this is not as humans do understand language. They interpret, generate, and a kind of language that we think is similar to human language, and we will see later what it is. Speech recognition and generation, these AI tools allow us to interact in a voice-based basis. Also, computer vision, AI that can interpret images, right, or can create images because understands our prompting, our messages, our language. And also personalization. There is AI that can get adapted to particular learning patterns, to particular difficulties, and can personalize the rhythm of the learner, the content of the learner, the feedback to the learner. Also, automation of tasks. This is very important because we can save plenty of time as teachers if we use it for grading or planning or generating content activities, whatever. And also predictive analytics or analysis. AI can also identify students struggling with particular areas of learning, and then we can take advantage and address those students faster and better. So there are lots of tasks that AI can perform in connection to education nowadays. And they require human intelligence. But is this intelligence similar to human intelligence? Well, I would say no, definitely not. Machine learning is not human learning. Basically, because machine learning is based on data, on processing patterns, and that's all. So there is nothing behind in terms of imagination, in terms of emotions, in terms of affective factors. So humans, we learn in a very complex way, in contexts in which we are affected by ethics, moral, and a system of values that even varies from one individual to another. And AI lacks all these things. So AI works in terms of numbers, embedded, right, a neural network. And then what we receive looks like language, looks like intelligence. But the way this is produced is not the way we produce our language, we produce our reasoning, right? I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm not saying it's better or worse. I'm just saying it is different. And to illustrate this, I wanted to share this diagram that ChatGPT gave me after prompting very clearly what I wanted. I have thought of my milestones in technology. I asked for very clear, milestones with the very clear instructions, what I wanted, they combining up and down with clear icon, name, date, etc. But that was what I received, starting with the fax, with the year of the telephone and the icon of the telephone. So there is not real understanding behind AI, right? And there is no causation, there is just correlation, there is syntax, not semantics. And this is where we come from, right? Very quickly, we are changing, this kind of idea of how technology evolves. And to analyze the impact of this on education, allow me to continue with a personal reference because I want to compare my education and the education of my son. So when I was a little girl, I learned mainly through books. That's what I used to find the information, right? And I lived in a small community. My mother tongue was the only language I was able to use when I was, at home, at school, and that was the industrial society. And, in academics, the subjects were, hierarchically organized. Everything was specific, and there was no multidisciplinary approaches and anything like that. L2 was just to communicate if you had the opportunity to meet someone or to experience this opportunity. And foreign languages were mainly taught through teaching English as a foreign language here in the context of Spain, where I lived. So today, this is my son. He's now about to be 22 years old, and he was educated using mass media, social networking, ICT, AI during his schooling time and university studies. And he has experienced a wider world. I remember one day he was speaking English in the room. And I said, what are you doing? Are you talking alone? And he said, no, I'm playing Minecraft with someone in the US. And I said, wow, I had never this experience at the age of 8. So that has an impact on you, on the way you learn. And this is the information society, and we now know that we have to approach learning in a more interconnected manner to make sense of the knowledge, right? So all this leads to a more complex, multicultural, multilingual society in which education needs to be prepared for this, right? We cannot stay just teaching the English as a foreign language, but we need to incorporate other approaches in which we take advantage of this rich context our students experience. I am personally a professor at University of Content and Language Integrated Learning, right? That's my expertise. And pluriliteracies, I have included this because this is what we are trying to teach students at the moment in terms of foreign languages. Because why do they use? Why do they want to learn? And we will reflect later the reasons why we want to learn languages. But definitely, if you're going to use the language nowadays in Europe, is to continue studying. So we have to provide students with the background of the specific language of every single subject they learn. So as you can see, this context nowadays is far more complex than the one we used to have. And this is an illustration of this type of education we are providing. We can have another conference to discuss about this. But it should be like this. It should be a learner-centered education. This is an example. If I was in the picture, probably I would have learned about the sound by reading the definition on a book, completing activities, and something similar. And this is the way Kenta learned about the sound, exploring his own recording, experimenting the high-low pitch on the wave, and understanding by experience what the sound is, right? So this is the context where we should be at. This is the paradigm shift we have made so far. And it is based in a very clear learner-centered approach. Now the question is, in this situation, if this is the situation, and we are going to agree that we start from here, how can we effectively integrate AI? Well, I have identified 4 important actions we should take. And the first one is grounding the use of AI into techno-pedagogical criteria, right? So the first 2 is just similar to the normal teaching and learning without the AI as a component in the learning, right, process. And of course, the learner-centered design with the universal design for all the learners. So everything so far can be similar. So it's a good starting point, I would say. But now, if we move to a more specific analysis of what the impact of AI can have in education, we can see that there are ethical and equity implications, right? So if we are going to introduce AI in education, we should be very aware of those implications, right? And in order to be able to identify and reflect on those implications, we need to provide teachers and students with the necessary skills to do it, right? And of course, context matters. It's not the same, and we have to be very aware the amazing bias AI is introducing at the moment, right? So context is very important in education, and if we are to introduce AI, we should pay attention to all these principles. A second action would be to, follow a strategy, right? A strategy I have taken for this, sorry. I have taken for these the recommendations by the UNESCO. So if we're going to introduce AI in education, AI should be based on ethical use, right, principles. And it should promote and generate a coordinated and collaborative policy and a strategic implication. You know, something we can do isolated, country by country. It's something we have to do together. And it should be based on research evidence, right? That's something common to any innovation. It's nothing new. But as I said before, it should promote teachers and students' AI literacy by training them, by bringing them aware of the not only pedagogical implications, but also ethical, concerning equity, concerning biases, concerning the way AI produces meaning and the way AI is going to impact on their teaching and their learning. Another interesting action that I find is that we should do this integration meaningful. I mean meaningful because when we integrate whatever the innovation in education, it has to be meaningful. There must be necessary, there must be a reason, it has to have a rationale, a very clear and important thing that is going to bring into your teaching, into the learning, that is worth the risks, is worth the challenge, is worth implementing it. And this dual approach involves one analysis of the pedagogical use, meaning that AI can never substitute the teacher or substitute your decisions as a teacher, but should enhance you as a teacher, right? And the other component of this dual approach is this critical reflection, the ability to evaluate the output, the awareness of the bias of particular outputs or the use of particular applications for the reasons, whatever the reasons are, where it comes from, the people who trained it, right, etc. So, and finally, the last action is by helping teachers and students developing AI literacy, because literacy itself is no longer sufficient, right? It's something that we need to go a step forward in education, in language education in particular. We are now dealing with pluriliteracies approach, in which we are trying to deal with deeper learning, textual fluency, multimodalities, but we need to move a step forward and have the skills to involve with AI, developing cyber-social literacy skills. These, according to Callantes and Cope, is a partnership between human learners and AI tools. And I find this extremely, extremely interesting and necessary, right? Because if students and teachers are not aware of how AI generates the meaning and how they can engage with that meaning, they are doing it in the dark. I mean, and that's very dangerous. So not only pedagogical implications, but also this kind of awareness and knowledge of the AI itself. So we need to know about how AI produces the knowledge, how AI works with this knowledge. If not, we are teaching in the dark. And this is absolutely dangerous. And for this, we need to develop multiliteracies, right? So I strongly recommend you to take a look at the materials produced by the Common Ground chairs in this sense. This is an example of the efforts that the European Commission and other institutions are doing in order to provide teachers and students with this support to develop the AI literacy that we need. This is in particular for primary and secondary teachers and students, right? But now I'm going to move to a more specific field, that is the education in terms of foreign languages. And as the UNESCO recommended, I'm going to start by paying attention to what scientific research says, right? And according to this study that analyzed 69 experimental studies in which students were using ChatGPT, There is a positive impact in academic performance, affective motivational aspects, high order thinking, skills and attitudes. However, and look at this, mental effort, there is a significant reduction. So this is very important that we pay attention to the repercussions of integrating AI, because we are going to make use of fantastic tasks that AI can perform. But if we use AI to perform these tasks for students and for us, what are we going to change in the way we teach, in the way we learn? Is this what we really want? That's the question, right? And, well, important to note that a majority of these studies were conducted at university. That's very common. Usually we start conducting research at university. On language education, right, is also very typical. And AI was used as a tool. Another interesting study is this one that points to challenges. For instance, in the reasons, why are people going to want to learn a foreign language if we can have immediate translation, we have access to very efficient tools based on AI that can do this for me, right? So that's very important to reflect on these implications and these challenges. And also, a majority of the tasks that AI can perform, when performed in comparison to humans, they are faster, more efficient, better. So there is a risk, right? However, the authors also bring attention into very important thing. AI has no understanding as we believe, as we understand, right? So we have to be very clear. There is a risk, but not because of the AI, but because of the lack of understanding of what it is and how to use it, right? So, and for these, as I said before, AI literacy is important, and this involves learning about the AI, not only learning how to use the AI, right? This specific study brings 6 applications of the AI in language learning, right? And this is very interesting because then we can identify what tasks in my teaching practice I can be supported or whatever by AI. Because I say whatever because I will bring you a framework in order to classify the different types of tasks that AI can perform for us. It's just an example, right? I'm not going to stay here. And this is another example of how we can classify tasks that AI can do. There is not the same, generative AI or predictive AI help us with different types of tasks. And we also need to be aware of these differences. So once I have, very quickly, I'm sorry for that because we are delayed. We have identified tasks that can help us as teachers and students, and we have understood that we can classify them somehow, depending on different criteria. I propose the use of this AI ladder in education in order to meaningfully and effectively integrate AI in education. Why this framework? Because with this simple ladder inserted in these 2 axes, one measuring the level of autonomy of the AI, right? That's considering how AI is working, at what degree of autonomy, and what are the pedagogical implications of this autonomy, right, of the AI. So I thought it was a very interesting point of view from the AI and not from the student or the teacher. So I'm going to very quickly describe each of the stairs. The first stair would be AI as simulation. These type of tools are going to help us like humans, but they are not humans, right? It's AI that can support in lots of conversation, pronunciation, vocabulary, grammar, language tasks, right? And for instance, a good example of this simulation AI tools is Elsa Speak. Do you know Elsa Speak? This is a fantastic AI that can personally improve your pronunciation skill, can correct your mistakes, can help you speak better. And I have used it with my students. I teach CLIL in the year 4 of the education degrees, primary and pre-primary, create mathematical podcasts in Spanish. And the teacher told me, I am going to collaborate with someone in Germany. Can you help me with the English? And I thought, wonderful. Let's have your students train their mathematic pluraliteracy, mathematic language. English is not the same when you talk about mathematics, when you talk about vacations, when you talk about literature. So they practice, they translate, transcribe. In all this process, we use AI, right? But with a purpose. And in this particular case, they use Elsa Speak to improve the pronunciation.
Welcome to Geometry in Action, the podcast where we dive into the fascinating world of sailors through surprising stories, passionate debates, and geometric mysteries that will change the way you see mathematics. Today, we are tackling a topic that may seem simple but has more to it than meets the eye: the relationship between trapezoids and other quadrilaterals.
All right, so trapezoids, quadrilateral, etc. So I didn't spend time in preparing them for this. They worked autonomously using AI for helping them in a particular way, simulating conversation. There are many other AI tools that can simulate this kind of conversation and language skills in order to improve. AI is an extension. That is the type of AI that is going to help us in very specific activities or tasks, and we're going to use it in order to be more efficient, right? As a teacher, for instance, Duolingo. I'm sure you know this one, right? You can have your students use it, and you don't need to teach anything. This works independently, all right? So, as you can see, we're growing in the degree of autonomy from the AI, right? And I particularly have my students analyze this type of tools, this type of AI, very, very thoroughly, because it is very important, the dual approach I was commenting before. What the pedagogical rationale of using it? Is it going to improve? Is it going to make your teaching, your learners' learning experience better? If yes, and after the analysis you come to the conclusion that this is the case, then use it. But if not, put it aside, all right? It's not innovation for innovation. It has to be thoroughly planned and implemented. And by doing this, we have students develop the AI literacy and critical approach to the integration of AI in their teaching practice in the future. This is another list, I'm sorry I have no time to comment on them, of AI tools that can support in this way, right, as an extension. And the last step of the ladder is the personalization, right? But don't understand that I am attributing human skills and abilities to artificial intelligence. But the level of autonomy in this case is greater. We're going to deal with technology, in this case with the AI, as a digital entity with autonomy. That's the case when we talk with AI, asking for something specific, dialoguing about the outputs, and polishing what you really want, as I was doing with the timeline, right? I wasn't successful in my task, but I tried hard. So this is an example. ChatGPT, Copilot, there are many nowadays that these are more popular in our contexts. So we're going to deal real, meaningful learning experiences. We will experience this with the AI, but it doesn't mean AI now can speak, now can understand now. It's still the same AI I was describing at the beginning. But the level of autonomy we're giving it is greater, right? I have my students analyze the language demands of the content on a CLIL lesson. They are learning to be primary, pre-primary teachers. They are not linguists. A few years ago, I struggled when having them analyze linguistic demands. Now I realized I can use ChatGPT by prompting I am a teacher. I'm going to teach this particular content to these particular students. They know what they are doing as a teacher, but they don't know the language necessary because we are not using a textbook. We are creating material. So AI can support them if they are trained to provide the AI with the correct prompting. So as you can see, these are, again, AI at this level, and this is the diagram I have adapted from the original, right? And I think it is really, really necessary that we train our teachers to understand what the level of autonomy, what the AI doing for me. Is it a tool? Is it a co-teacher helping me in particular tasks? Or is it a digital entity I am talking with and having some information and deciding what is good, what is not, all right? And according to the level, to the step of the letter, we can have different pedagogical impact because not every single AI has the same implications and repercussions on our teaching and learning practices. Well, as any tech advance in history, there are always benefits and risks. This is nothing new, right? And we are at the moment of evaluating the risks. And they are here. I'm sure you all agree with me. These are the risks. Lack of real understanding, over-reliance, very dangerous. We are realizing now that we have to combine more traditional learning, writing by hand, reading books, touching paper, right? Because our brain and children's brain learn from experience in the 5 senses play an important role, and if we put all the emphasis in technology, we're just reducing it to certain means of sources for information, right? So then errors, be careful, because sometimes because of this lack of understanding, students can fossilize errors. Not in pronunciation, maybe, but yes, in understanding, in semantics, because sometimes there is no context and the conversation can end in silly senses, nonsenses, you know, and sentences that have no meaning. And, or, which is also very dangerous from the point of view of a teacher, can produce activities or content or things that are not pedagogically the best ones, right? Maybe you can do best than the AI. So these are different things that we have to pay attention to. Very quickly, I'm going to go through some important ethical dilemmas. According to a review of, I think it was 60-something ethics document produced by government, companies, and organizations, there is a clear agreement on the principles. We know where we need to move, right? However, there is a clear lack of strategy. There is no strategy, and there is a very clear need for collaboration and cooperation at an international level. And the most important thing, there is a clear dominance of Western countries at the moment in this AI we are using. With regard to equity, right? With regard to equity, I'm sorry, thank you. So we have here that AI in education must be inclusive by design, addressing individual learners' needs, pace. We have to ensure, and this is one of the aspects I like the most of AI, the potential of AI in attending diversity, in addressing specific difficulties in learning. Students with, for instance, Asperger, or this kind of linguistic problems can be very well benefited from AI if addressed the right way. Equity goes beyond access, of course. Fair representation, participation, and benefit of these AI tasks and tools is essential. And if not addressed critically, we are going to maybe reinforce existing inequalities, right? So we have to be very careful with this. And trustworthy AI systems require transparency, require explainability, and require accountability. we have to monitor, we have to look at the consequences, right? And as the governments, as the authorities and the organizations for more ethical and, moral in these policies that are lacking at the moment. And, well, for all these, very quickly, it's critical to develop AI literacy, I have been saying, and one person individually has nothing to do. We live in a world where things have to be done together. Never done before, collaboration and cooperation from teachers, from authorities, from governments, from everything is necessary. But in education, at school level, for instance, AI implementation needs to be done in a group, needs to be done as a whole, analyzing all these aspects. Look at this body type bias. This is just a simple example of the many biases you can find in AI outputs, right? Because AI is mainly trained in English and is mainly trained in Western countries. So this necessarily provides a worldview that is distorted. And some cultures, some languages, some ways of thinking are not represented in the AI we are using. And we are going to put these into the classroom. We have to be very careful. Finally, the teacher's role. Well, I'm going to go straight ahead. The TPAC framework is something quite old. I mean, it's something really solid and has been long-lasting because of the utility. It's very helpful. And I decided to bring it here because if you are whatever the content teacher you are, you need to know your content, but you also need to know the pedagogy of your content. And if we put in this Schulman's idea of teaching a third component that is technology, and in our case is artificial intelligence, then we not only need to know the content and the pedagogy of the content, but we also need to know about the AI itself, as Cope and Callansis were explaining in the paper before. And not only that, not only knowing about the AI, but knowing the pedagogy of the AI for your particular content. So this framework is perfectly useful, is very, very coherent with the kind of implementation of the AI we are trying to approach. There is an AI for everything. That's the danger. There is an AI for whatever you want to do. Go here, ask this AI for another AI, and you will have the AI you are looking for. But it doesn't make sense to use it, without a pedagogical grounding, without this dual approach, without this, reflection, etc. And we need to review the way we are doing. If we are integrating as teachers AI in our classes, we need to be aware of cognitive implications from the point of view of the AI, or we need to be able to understand basic concepts. The European Centre of Modern Languages has been funding very interesting projects to have teachers understand digital literacy for the teaching and learning of languages, or digital citizenship through language education. So there are many areas we need to be trained and we need to know in order to effectively and meaningful integrate education. The last one, 2027, AI for language education. Well, I'm going to finish very quickly with these outputs from my students after being trained to use AI in their classes. And the question I asked them is, how do you imagine AI will influence your future as a teacher? And as you can see there, give me a second because I cannot see from here what appears here. Well, some of them say that it will help them with thinking, things they don't know. So when you don't know something, AI can quickly tell you about that. Dangerous, very dangerous, right? To prepare materials, interesting, but you need to know how to do it in grounded, blah, 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 all right? And help me getting ideas for creativity, good. That's something we use as scientific researchers. Teaching more attractive, making teaching more attractive. That's true, that's true. We cannot put all the eggs in the net of technology, but we need to bring technology into our classes because our students live with technology, right? And also can save time, right? It's very interesting that they reflect on this ability of performing tasks faster than we do, and this is very important for us as teachers. Create materials, blah, blah, blah. I find extremely interesting this one. The way my students perform their tasks. The student teacher is thinking about the repercussions for the learners, which is good. I think the training had a very good impact. If you're able to anticipate what your learner experience is going to be in this context of mediated learning by the AI is interesting. The way we do lesson planning, being more creative, and also very interesting to not only be trained yourself, but train your students. Because she says, or he says, the students are going to use are going to use it a lot, it's missing, and maybe for silly things, right? That's very good, right? So they are anticipating these risks. Final considerations. I'm not going to repeat, but we have to be very clear about why we want to use the AI and how we're going to use it and what the repercussions are. In this sense, the AI letter or whatever the guide or framework you find yourself on your own helps you understand what is the role of the AI for you as a teacher and for your students, will help avoid these negative effects, right? Always paying lots of attention to the ethical dilemmas, the issues in equity and biases, right? I share my office at my university in Comillas with a philosopher. And he told me, why don't you include some questions about AI from the point of view of philosophy? And I thought, well, that's true. That's true because I am not able to answer any of them, right? But I hope in these attractive days and interesting days, as we head in, we can discuss and explore and arrive more clear answers for these questions, right? Does AI represent shadows of intelligence rather than intelligence itself? Or can genuine intelligence emerge from complex but fundamentally mechanic systems, which is the case, right? Or is subjective experience necessary for true intelligence? Because we have been dealing with this comparison, talking about, this issue, right? This feature. Well, I wanted to finish my presentation with the words of one of my future students who took the time to write this long answer. So I thought it is worth to share it with the conference attendees. And I'm going to read it for you. It is difficult to predict. Remember, the question is the same question we were analyzing before. How do you imagine AI will influence your future as a teacher? It is difficult to predict. As with everything that is automatized, education embracing AI is a good thing. It means that it will look into it, investigate it, and ultimately design a plan to teach students to use it responsibly. Some say at some point it may even substitute us teachers, while I personally doubt for many reasons. If it ever happened, it would only just mean that our work may be even more valuable, just like what happened with the artisans and to the artists before. Automatization has increased the value of actual human work. I think it's very deep, this reflection. Whatever the case may be, AI as a tool, and we make use of those to make our lives easier, to advance, Us teachers not taking advantage of it only for protecting the traditional school is just fighting against the nature of our profession, of our job of teaching. So, thank you very much. This is the references.